What's up everybody, welcome back. Today we're talking drops, but not just simple straightforward drops, oh no.
That's right Rich, technical drops today. That little extra bit of flavour and spice really keep you on your toes.
Yep, so sit back, relax, grab a cuppa and watch this.
If you are still learning to drop, you're building that confidence, you can check out some of the videos we've done before about learning to drop. But today we're talking about what it actually means to have a more technical feature with maybe just a little bit of extra complication, a difficult sight line, maybe a loose setup, or you have to brake awkwardly just before you take off. There's a whole manner of different things that can make a drop technical, as well as focusing on the jumping movement itself. So the first drop we're looking at today on the 50 Shades track at Bike Park Wales is this rock drop, which comes after quite a fast road gap. And the thing that makes this particular feature technical is it's actually pretty blind and intimidating as you come off the lip. The lip itself is actually a natural rock, so there's a bit of a curve to it, which means on different lines on the drop, you're going to have a slightly different takeoff, and there's a few loose bits of sort of shale and gravel on the takeoff itself. And I think the key with this is it's being prepared as you reach the point on the lip where you can see what's coming to make a really fast decision and react to the landing. So there's some drops you might have to squish and push down, get your bike down onto the ground as quickly as possible to set up for the landing. This one, you actually have to pull off a little bit to make sure you nose your bike into the correct landing zone. And it's having that snap reaction, sort of almost as you go into the air, that is the really key technical skill for this section. The final little complication for this particular drop on 50 Shades is the fact that as you land, the trail curves around to the left, because as you land, you need to set up on the brakes, pick your line, and then be looking ahead round the corner and ready for the next feature.
Technical drops then, much like this one here. Now, first of all, where would we find a technical drop? Well, blue runs, they predictably, as the name suggests, being blue runs, have sort of learner drops, nothing more than a foot tall really, things that you can definitely roll off. Red runs is where it might start getting a little trickier, where you might need a little bit more momentum. There might be some different run-ins or run-outs of it. It's the black runs especially where we are going to find drops like this. So this is called 50 Shades of Black, this run here in Wales. So first up, we've got a big old rider's right-hander coming into it. And look at all of this. Just gravel absolutely everywhere. So keeping speed coming into this drop is going to be crucial first, because it's very easy to go too slow or slip out when it comes to something like this. Next up, it's a completely blind drop. You cannot see the landing whatsoever. That's obviously quite a scary thing for a lot of people to sort of overcome in your brain. So confidence here is key. If you've got your drops absolutely dialed, well, you need to be able to step up to something like this, because the drop does get a lot bigger and the commitment level therefore gets a lot bigger as well. What about the technical side of it though? The drop itself here, well, like I said, a number of aspects going on. The drop, if you were to go quite short off of it to here where my right foot is, you're probably talking 3 to 4 foot. Now, that is coming up a touch short, I would say, because you've got aspects like this big stump here, which you definitely want to clear. If you want to go further into the proper landing, bear with me, people. Ooh, I can't stop. Not here. This is kind of your sweet spot here. So you're looking at a good, I'd say 6 to 8 foot out and probably down as well. So that's a considerable size drop. So you're going to want to monitor your speed quite carefully for that and gauge it really well as well. That's something that's going to come with more technical drops, being able to gauge your speed, knowing how much is going to be the right amount to pull up and carry off of the lip so that you don't go too short or go too far, because if you fly down here, you're in for a heck of a ride. This is almost to flat. There isn't much sort of wide landing. It's off camber on the side. You've got a real narrow channel. A drop like this is still good, mind, because it is a fairly long landing. So you can plop off of it and then work up speed to find that sweet spot and hopefully get it right. Another aspect of this drop then is it's not a dead straight line, which throws a whole nother element to it. So if I was to draw a straight line here, through me and on, I'd be sending it straight into those trees on the right-hand side. That's why the bank's worn away on the right-hand side, because it's kind of like a hip off of it. So you can see you can come straight off the middle of the drop, but you need to turn slightly off of it as well and aim my rock of line choice straight down through the middle like that. But that is something you're gonna have to bear in mind, like I said, because it's a blind drop. You've got to remember to do that, otherwise you're in for a world of pain. Another technique that is required for more technical drops, more often than not, is actually being able to squash it. So, much like you would on a jump, a big tabletop, a dirt jump, whatever, where you squash it to not go in the air as much, or instead of being kicked up or pulling up, is to carry on in a sort of more horizontal trajectory. It's the same for drops. So on something like this, to stop myself going really far but still carry some good speed, I'll squash it. So it's essentially absorbing with my arms and legs off the drop and then pushing the bike down into the landing so it's further away. And then when I touch down on the landing, I'm then absorbing it again with my arms and legs.
The next technical section we're looking at on 50 Shades, technical drops, is this section in front of me, and there's these 2 drops in quick succession. Now, neither of them are massive, and there's nothing about the specific drop itself that's super technical, but the key point in this section is there's a left-hand corner coming up straight after them, which is, it's a bit tight and it's quite loose without much support, so you need your braking and your body weight set up for that corner, which means you need to be thinking about that on the drops themselves. But by the time you reach this drop, you don't have any more space to brake, so you have to be at your cornering speed before you reach the drop. And that means you have to think back up the trail to here. Now, between the drops, they're not the closest together in the world, but it's still pretty hard to brake before there. And the thing with that as well is, when you brake, it's your body weight is drifting forward, and that doesn't set you up for the corner very well, or for going off the second drop, which means you have to think back up the trail to up here, and that's where you can see everyone's been braking. And I've ridden this section a couple of times to try and dial that point in, and it really is up here. If you set up really well here, looking ahead and making sure you can control your speed, pushing the bike down off this first drop to be at the right angle for the corner, that's what makes this section really technical.
Right then, next up on my drop hit list of horrors is this little number in front of me here. Now, to most people, this probably doesn't look too bad, but actually there's a lot going on with it. For starters, the run-up is fine. You've actually got quite a lot of time to set up for this, but it's all sloping downhill, including this rock that you take off. Now, what makes that tricky is that when you're sloping downhill, it then becomes harder to pull up enough without nosediving off the drop. So actually, the trajectory that it sends you pointing down becomes tricky to sort of fulfill that manual going off it, because you have to pull that little bit harder to be able to not be too nose heavy. Once you have done that, after this, it's sort of gravel and ground-wise, it's a fairly wide, okay-ish landing. The problem is, it's almost to flat. So if you go too fast off of this, and if you judge your speed incorrectly, you're going a long way to flat, and then after that again, it narrows up between a couple of tight trees into a right-hander. So although it might not look like too much in comparison to the last one I just did, there's actually still quite a lot of things going on. So coming into this one, like I said, the run-up is fairly easy. It's a little bit loose and a few stones here, but you'll aim to sort of hit square off the middle of this because you can actually see the landing. So that's what makes this one different from the previous. Now, I don't want to go too fast, like I said before, because if I do, I'm landing down here somewhere. And if that happens, it gives me very little setup time for there. So I'm going to be covering the brakes, especially the back brake. I'm going to pull up nice and smoothly off here. Probably, honestly, only going to aim to land a few feet down the landing. It's probably only about 3 foot by 3 foot, this one. The trick to technical drops, I think, is not just the drop itself, but it's being able to focus on what's coming after it as well. Now, what happens if you go too slow off the drops? Well, like I said before, you're going to probably go over the bars because you'll lift up, the front end will drop, and that ain't no good. If you don't hold the manual long enough, like I said, it's also going to end disastrously. Now, these marks here on the rock, as you can see them, those are chainring marks. So essentially what people have done, they've pulled up, but the front wheel has dropped before the back wheel has gone off. They clipped the chainring, and I dread to think what would have happened next. So speed is always your friend. I would actually always prefer to go faster than too slow off of a drop. There we have it then, how to elevate your standard drops to your more technical drops. What do you reckon, buddy?
I think that's a really nice little overview of technical drops today. I mean, that's really no limit now to how complex they can get as soon as you've got those other things.
That's it. You're well away to being able to tackle almost anything on the trail, isn't it?
That's it. I think what's one of the key skills once you start riding outside bike parks is just understanding how all the technical elements link in together, and being able to predict that really brings you on.
Yeah, nice. Well, look, if we can help any more, do let us know in the comments down below. But for us, for now, we're out of here. Thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.